What's going on, guys? Chris and Michael here from Boxing Brothers Online Coaching, and today we're going to run you through 5 footwork tips for sparring. Okay, so the first one and most important is starting. I've spoken about this one a lot. So imagine against your opponent, you're starting in the corners, the bell goes ding ding, and you meet into the center of the ring. The first thing you're going to identify is whether your opponent is orthodox or southpaw, and that is going to determine exactly what direction you should be circling in to start, okay? So first and foremost, you make your way to the center. You don't want that bell to go and have your opponent possess more of the ring than what you have. You want to get to the center so that you have equal real estate with your opponent. You get there, you determine what they are, and then you move into the opposite direction of their power hand. So if I've got in front of Michael and he's orthodox, I want to start circling to my right. I want to favor my right away. If I've gone to the center and Michael's come out southpaw, boom, I want to do the opposite. I want to be circling to my left, away from his power hand. Moving your feet into the direction away from your opponent's power hand is the most important thing to do when you start. The reason why you want to circle away from your opponent's power hand is so that you're on the outside of their lead foot. So if Michael's southpaw now and I'm moving this way, I'm avoiding his power shot. I'm not moving into his power shot. So when he does throw it, I'm shaving off the impact of the shot and hopefully making him miss it. And then for me to be able to counter from this position is going to be a lot more easier. Likewise, I'm staying on the outside of the foot. If I'm moving onto Michael's inside, if he's southpaw and I'm moving this way, it's easier for him to move into that direction and for him to adjust and leverage off his lead foot, pivoting backwards like that and facing me. Whereas if I'm moving on the outside of his lead foot, it's going to be a lot harder for him to adjust and then essentially get that power hand on. Okay, so once you've made your way to the center and you've got in front of your opponent, you're moving away from that power hand, you want to make sure that you're in a constant state of movement, okay? It's much harder for your opponent to move a hitting target than a still target. So if I'm in front of Michael now, and it only needs to be a little bit of movement, doesn't need to be a lot of movement. If I'm in front of Michael now and we're moving around and I'm kind of shifting to the right, shifting to the left, going back a little bit, going forward, I'm constantly having to force Michael to adjust his punches according to where I'm moving. Even if I'm moving away from his power hand, I'm moving away from his hand, but I'm still moving back a little bit. I'm moving forward a little bit. I'm moving left, I'm moving right. If you're in a constant state of movement, it's going to be more difficult for your opponent to line you up and get their shots on, okay? And you become very unpredictable. Your opponent doesn't know what direction that you're going to move in next, okay? It doesn't need to be big movement, but it needs to be a little bit of movement. Also, being in a constant state of movement is going to help you take off when needed. So if I'm dead still and then Michael rushes me, it's going to be harder for me to shift off from being dead still, as opposed to having a little bit of movement. If he rushes me, I can retreat easily because I've already got a little bit of momentum in my feet. Think of it as being the equivalent to going from a jog to a sprint as opposed to a stand and a sprint. So try to find yourself being in a constant state of movement. Lift those heels ever so slightly off the ground, keep on the balls of your feet and keep mixing up the range and the distance and the angle against your opponent. All right, the next one is one that I see very often is leaping. Avoid leaping, okay? Try not to leap. So if I'm in front of Michael now and he throws something at me, I don't want to be taking both feet back at the same time. Not often anyway. Try to avoid it as much as you can. Likewise, if Michael's at a longer range and I want to throw my punches, I don't want to be here going boom, boom, jumping into my punches. Avoid leaping. You want to make whatever adjustments that you need to against your opponent and the range that you share using steps as frequently as you can. Fast, balanced steps. So if I'm in front of Michael now and we're sparring and he comes at me, I want to be boom, try to step back. Take my feet back with control. If Michael's out of range and I want to punch him and he's moving back and I want to punch him from here, there is no way I'm going to jump into the shot because that's going to be very telegraphic. He knows he can see it coming from yesterday. He sticks his jab out and boom, I walk into that jab. And there's no retreating from that. You've committed to it. You have to jump back, jump forward. Likewise, if I've gone back, once I've gone back, boom, like this, I've settled myself. There's an end point to my movement. Whereas if I shift back as he's coming forward, I can keep shifting back. If I shift forward, coming forward, I can keep shifting forward or make an adjustment and change direction. Avoid leaping. It can get you into all sorts of trouble. So the next important thing you want to be doing is cutting the ring off if you do end up being the person that's doing the pressuring, okay? So if I'm pressuring Michael and he's circling away from my power hand like he should be, I want to try to make him go into the opposite direction, into my power hand, or eventually usher him into the corner and against the ropes. So very often you'll see 2 boxes in front of each other, one's on the outside, one's on the inside, and it's just constantly going around, constantly going around, constantly going around. And it might not necessarily be anyone's fight, but it's going like this. From here, I want to be moving around with Michael and I want to be cutting him this way. And then cutting him this way, cutting across. Using my feet very subtly, trying to usher him into the corner or against the ropes, or at the very least to make him uncomfortable and move into a direction that he does not wish to move. If you continue moving into the direction that your opponent wants to move, and you accommodate for where they want to go in the ring, where they want to position themselves, then you're fighting their fight. Whereas if Michael's comfortably moving this way, he's snapping his jab out, he's avoiding my power hand, he's going to keep winning the fight, not necessarily because he's the better puncher, but he's the better mover. Whereas as soon as I start moving in the opposite direction, cutting the ring off, okay, and you need to learn to move laterally in doing so. So if Michael's in front of me and he's going this way and I'm circling with him, I want to change from circling to sidestepping. By sidestepping, I'm eliminating the amount of room he's able to move in the ring, and I'm forcing him to travel into another direction. When he starts traveling into another direction against his will, that's when I want to start banging him, and that's when he's going to expect it the least. All right, the last one is don't over move. Far too often you see two dudes get in the ring or two girls get in the ring and they're just boom, bouncing around unnecessarily. Settle your feet a little bit. There's a fine line between it. You don't want to glue your feet to the ground. You want to be in a constant state of movement like we mentioned earlier, but you don't want to be jumping around. You don't want to be using a lot of energy, just bouncing around the ring unnecessarily, okay? Again, it depends what weight division you're fighting at, because it's a different pace fight, but you want to be nice and settled. You want to be in that nice constant state of movement, so that if you do need to take off, you can have moments where you get on your bike and you get out of danger, or you're chasing down and you're cashing in on an opportunity. But you don't want to be jumping around unnecessarily. You don't want to be leaping around like we said earlier either. Try not to over move. So if I'm in front of Michael now, I don't want to be moving forward unnecessarily and then giving him the opportunity to pivot out and get a check hook on me, or achieve an angle against me. I don't want to be rushing back unnecessarily. You know, Michael throws like a light jab and I just, you know, I take it too seriously and I'll launch myself back and he ends up chasing me down and getting me up against the ropes. You want to take it easy, okay? Don't over move. Nice, relaxed movement, little movements, mixing up your direction of movement, away from their power hand. Yeah, every now and again you get on your bike, you shift out, you shift forward, you shift around, whatever it may be, but don't over move. Don't burn up too much energy, excessively moving unnecessarily. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends. We'll see you next time.